hit a separate note. I'm hitting many of these notes twice. If you listen to jazz bass players, sometimes they do that. So there's just this myth that you always have to keep moving. That makes life pretty strenuous on guitar. You have to keep thinking that much. I don't want to think, I just want to groove. You can't groove all the time as far as having your brain be active on every front. At least I can't. Right now I'm not thinking at all, I'm just letting the fingers and the ears run, and from years of playing it'll happen. This is the top of the chord. I'm going to raise it down. Getting into trouble that way, but almost ran out of the net. Now right there you might say, but you're not thinking of those bass notes? No, I'm responding to the 4 dominant 7 this key of E. Just from years of programming the arpeggios of chord tones into the, you see those after a while. I mean, if that's your interest, which it was for me, I just always loved the sound of the low end of the guitar, amongst other things. So you want to get to where you can, you know. So they're going to audit you, no joke, man. I can't believe it. You know, just everything's automatic. You know, where you just see, just like you're playing this. It's got to be that automatic, because then you don't have to think much. You can just kind of groove with it and control it a little bit. But it's as if someday science will find out there were mini brains. They almost take over. Guitar players know. You all know. I mean, you'll be talking to somebody in your hands. It's not their mind. Ways to touch the instrument. So when you play with the thumb, forgive me if some of you know this, if you play horizontally across the strings, you will not get the same sound as if you come in, push the string into the soundboard and let it spring up. And again, you might notice when you pluck or hit a string, it doesn't vibrate what you think that it would sideways. It first goes up and down pretty much. I mean, there's some sideways play. If you massively attack it, sure, you're just physically going to move that mass a little. But a string, a clothesline, if you've ever seen a clothesline, when you move it, it goes this way, it goes up and down. That's why you get string rattle too. You know, on the big strings, they move more. So, you know, you hit one of these, and maybe no other string is vibrating on the open strings and hitting, and then just the bottom E, just because it's moving so much up and down. So, if you push it into the board and then release, there's a different attack than if you just do. This is good. Let's go forward. I like that full sound. A different, clearer sound again. Setting this guitar up for this amp, which I certainly haven't, I would lower that string. I've got it set really high to compensate for other amps I've used this guitar. Your amp gets louder when I hit it. I don't want it to get that much louder. It shows also maybe this amp has a natural thing with the speakers and the amp, that combination, whatever. This package has an extra peak right in there. Some of that same sound we're getting with the thumb. Pretty similar.
So are you pretty structured on finger assignment on your right hand when you're coming along?
No, I promise I'm not one of my strengths, and I'm not sure if it was a strength that I would structure it. I did work at one point on getting these to alternate, so I can, if I'm warmed up, they'll at least not get too out of sync. I don't have to think about them. They just will keep alternating no matter what's happening.
So when you were doing that comping with the walking bass, you were just doing the top 3 strings with your thumb and then catching the bottom 3 strings with your fingers?
You said a mouthful. Most of that's right. If we just reverse the words bottom and top in your sense, because we've got to go by pitch. If you meet Quincy Jones at the soda fountain, where They're everywhere still, aren't they? This one is, man, I love that. Listen to your recording, man. And those bottom notes. I mean, he's talking bass. So, yeah, this is bottom and this is top. Even if to the earth it's backwards, that's just how guitar is.
Do you ever double pick when you do that thing?
No, but I have friends, students, colleagues, people all of whom I'm rabidly jealous of who do that.
Well, bass player that does that.
Yeah.
It's an
Oh, it's
amazing thing.
You see the videos of Wes, he's moving his thumb, both directions when he wants to go real fast. Most of these slurs to go fast, but every now and then it just shock you. That little thumb would be a blur. When I saw Greene play years ago, he would just do the thumb real blurry fast in both directions on the bass strings when he played loop, when he had those fast bass runs. It was really amazing. But no, I never developed that, and I don't see how I could, because I'm left-handed, and I'm overly left-handed. One of those kind of cats, just way left-handed. Everything here has just been good luck. I mean, it's not real. If I work hard, I can get some progress in the right hand, but it comes real slowly. Then it'll peak out every now and then. I don't understand this about guitar practice, but if you practice real hard, I mean like 5 to 10 hour days and stuff, you can afford to, middle of the night, you just get up and sneak out there. The hours start adding up, and then suddenly something you haven't been working on will have shockingly improved. It's like, what a gift. Because I'll be working on this stuff and starting to add melodies. Maybe I start playing a song. Precise, and that's assigned fingers in the sense that you're just grabbing certain strings. My thumb always gets the lowest, it seems, and then whatever fingers fall naturally, no matter what the spacing is. When I play chords like these, I'm playing the bottom two and the top two. I'm not going to use a little finger up there. Just could. I'd be scared that I wouldn't know what strings to play then, because it's so automatic. Think about that. A good thing to develop, though, is just playing with these three fingers a lot. You just do 5-10 minutes a day of the weaker fingers on the hand. We have much more intelligence here, which you can easily improve some time by picking something like this off the, a pencil or pen off the ground with your weaker hand. If you're left-handed, do it with your right hand. If you're right-handed, do it with your left-handed. By the time you get to this will feel so foreign. Like you maybe have never done it in your life, except when you were a kid and didn't know what to do. Most of our wiring, or so much of it, is in the first finger and the thumb. So when you're playing with this stuff, you develop this independently. That really it's good news for the whole music plan inside your brain. Everything you do with guitar playing will improve if these are stronger. We were discussing Lenny Grove before, Jay and I. This guy had really developed that side of his hand, maybe more than the average guitarist will ever do. He purposely worked on it because he wanted to be able to play melodies, at least at a reasonable speed, with just these two fingers, while he was playing chords inside and occasionally the bass line, but not too often the bass. So just a few more things about tone and touch, then we'll talk about actual music. Let's see this. Sustain versus percussiveness. There's so many shades in between there. Just hold the chord, or you just go barely. And when you barely touch a chord, if you barely press down, you can see I'm just going to go like that, just barely. And these are big strings, so I should be doing more. If I just go like that, we're not going to get anything, but more something. So you don't actually have to press all the way if you want a super percussive staccato. I think Wes pressed all the way just a little tiny bit when he got his, because he liked to throw the chords off. Of course, he wasn't playing an E, he would have laughed at us. But he didn't grow up out, we're post-war kids. As they say. I'm sure something will come back to me that I didn't mention about playing with the open hand, but for now, maybe some of you guys can ask me questions if you like, if anybody has any particular areas. How about we'll throw the floor open for subjects you'd like me to talk about. Call it that.
I'd really like to see you kind of comp a tune like There'll Never Be Another You or something like that. Like I think a lot of us play those kinds of things, but somehow it doesn't sound quite the way you do. And kind of talk about, what you're doing. There's a lot of in-between chords. For example, you're a folk singer, you play E, A, and B7. Well, there's a lot of different E's, A's, and B7s you can hit on that neck, as I think a lot of us know. But you know like a lot more of them. And like, for example, you played this little blues thing with that nice little moving bass early on when you picked the guitar up. And, well, like, I don't know what that is. I'd like to know something about how you're doing that, how you're thinking about that.
Well, let's work backwards. Let's start with that thing you already heard, the blues. Like I was saying, one of the keys is to see your chord tones, but on the primal level above the triad, which means 7th chords and 6th chords. There are 7 main ones to know that have dominated the history of Western music for a long time. The dominant 7, the minor 7, the minor 7 flat 5, which is also called half diminished 7. Then the fully diminished 7, which is also like saying minor 6th flat 5 if you spell it a different way. Someday they'll probably call it that. And then the straight old minor 6 and the straight old major 6 and the major 7. If you can see the bottom 2 strings of the guitar with those chord tones, you will find after a considerable period of studying it that it cordons off into 2 sets of 4 pairs for any chord. Let's see if I can demonstrate that. Again, the importance of these is these give you targets. Because the jazz guys don't often just play all chord tones. Sometimes they do. And I certainly was sometimes, but most of what you hear has stepwise fill in. You either come in from a half step below, like if these are your 2 notes, so or scale tones are allowed instead of, if you don't want that sound, if they're different, if the scale tone produces a different result. These are things that people rehearse, of course, a little. But it's not so much which notes, as long as your stable ones are right, that it's not so much which ones you choose in between as much as it is just the group, the overall feel. So I don't want you to get the notion that you got to think too much about which notes. It really isn't the case. If you were playing bass for a living, okay, but just accompanying some chords, oh my goodness, you don't have to. It's more just get some activity. The line, don't mistake activity for achievement, holds true, but not here so much. Activity is what we want. If I can hear anything happening down there, I played the trash man down there, so, I mean, really trashy. My spoiled freaking record, I used to say. I don't know what the hell this stuff is. This is nothing. But at least it's moving around, and there's some chords. As long as some of those notes are the right ones, because you've got the goals in mind. I'll demonstrate some more of it, how to fill in. But anyway, the main thing is to, I said they were cordoned off into 2 sets of 4 pairs. See if we can show it in C dominant 7. So if you study the bottom 2 strings, forget the open strings for a moment. These 2, of course, sit right next to each other. We usually call this out in the wild woods of Encino, the thickened root. If you ask somebody to sing that back, right? We're here at the top note, that's the root. And so we thickened it up downstairs.